All right, looks like everything is connecting up. Apologize for being just a couple of minutes late. Uh, Had an issue with getting on Facebook, so appreciate everyone's patience. Get everything loaded up, and I hope that each of you will enjoy our study tonight. Appreciate those of you who are interested in learning more about narrative therapy. And I'll go ahead and get things kicked off here, share my screen with you. We'll get things started just in a second. All right. All right. Again, I appreciate everybody being on with us and thank you for your interest in this live study that we have tonight, this narrative study of finding healing through the Lord of the Rings. This is an 8-week narrative therapy series. Mm. And this is, of course, brought to you by our services at Looking Forward Counseling here, located in beautiful Rogersville, Tennessee. We'll be coming to you 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time each night here and on Facebook Live for the next 8 weeks, starting tonight. So thank you so much for being a part of this, and we'll go ahead and get things kicked off. First off, I want to make sure to use a fair use disclaimer as we go through this study. This study series makes use of excerpts and references from J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings for the purposes of commentary, education, and personal growth under the principles of fair use. This material is used in a transformative way as part of a narrative therapy group and study. No copyright infringement is intended. All rights remain with the original copyright holders, and participants are encouraged to support Tolkien's work by reading and, of course, purchasing the original texts. Finding healing through the Lord of the Rings. So, as we go through this study, I want you to be able to see that there's power in stories. And as we bring this to you, of course, this isn't as in-depth of an analysis as you would get in a general narrative therapy approach if you come for counseling. But I just wanted to give people an example of what can be done with narrative therapy and how powerful that it can be in helping us guide through lots of issues in our lives. But stories have, of course, the power to heal. They give us language for what we feel, images for what we carry, and hope for what we long to become. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings is one of the greatest modern stories of courage, loss, friendship, and redemption. It's not just a tale of hobbits, elves, and kings. It is a mirror that reflects our own struggles and our own journey toward healing. That's what we'll examine tonight and hope to be, of course, a help to you as we do so. So, what should you expect in this time or in this study? Well, in this study, we're going to explore The Lord of the Rings through the lens of narrative therapy. Narrative therapy helps us recognize that our lives are stories and that we're not bound by a single chapter. Even the darkest moments can be reframed in the light of hope, meaning, and resilience. What will we learn through this process? Well, like Frodo carrying the ring, many of us bear burdens we never asked for: grief, trauma, shame, or struggles with addiction. Like Sam, we may feel small but discover courage we never knew we had. Like Aragorn, we may be called to step into an identity we once resisted. And ultimately, like Gandalf, we may walk through fire and shadow only to be transformed onto the other side. So, as an overview of what we're going to be looking at for the next 8 weeks, so over the course of these 8 weeks, we will walk alongside the Fellowship of the Ring and discover how their story can reshape our own. Each session will include a key scene from Tolkien's work, reflections on how that story intersects with our own lives, narrative therapy exercises such as journaling and storytelling, and then lastly, time for group sharing, encouragement, and support. So, why this study? Why are we doing this, and why would we approach this study with narrative therapy? Well, this is not just a study about literature, it's an invitation to healing. Together, we will learn to see our lives not as broken beyond repair, but as ongoing epics where even suffering can be woven into meaning. So, take up your staff, pack your bag, step out onto the road, because healing, like an adventure, always begins with a single step. As Bilbo, of course, has said, it's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. So, as we go through section 1, we want to look at framing the story. This is how we first approach understanding narrative therapy. We want to understand how we frame the story. So, of course, by framing the story, as we look at Lord of the Rings, we have to see the call to adventure. In the Fellowship of the Ring, Frodo Baggins begins as an ordinary hobbit, living a quiet life in the Shire. His days are filled with simple joys such as food, friendship, and the safety of home. Yet hidden in his possession is an object that will change the course of his life. And we know, of course, it's the One Ring. When Gandalf reveals the true nature of the ring, Frodo feels the weight of fear and responsibility. He didn't choose this burden. He did not go looking for adventure, yet he is called to carry it. He's thrust into this story. And as we said at the first, your life may be in such a way that you didn't ask for the trauma. You didn't ask to be brought into the world. You didn't ask to be put into the situations that you may have been pulled into. So Frodo here, his first instinct, of course, is resistance. When he says, I wish it need not have happened in my time. We often wish our burdens would be pushed off to another time, to another place, or to another person. This moment captures the heart of the healing journey. Like Frodo, many of us are handed burdens, again, that we never asked for. We didn't ask for grief. We didn't ask to lose people in our lives that we love. We didn't ask for trauma. We haven't asked for loss. Many people struggle with addiction that they didn't come up with, or we may have wounds from our past. So again, we often echo Frodo's words that I wish this had never happened. And we often will think, if we're honest, I wish this had never happened to me. But yet here we are. This is where we are in our story. Gandalf's reply to Frodo in the story of the Fellowship is where he gives us sort of the frame for this study for tonight. So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what we do with the time that is given us. This conversation is not about denying pain. It's not about denying the heaviness or the pain related to the burden that's been put on us, but it's about reframing it. So, what narrative therapy teaches us that we are not passive characters doomed to repeat the same script. Instead, you and I, we are authors, co-writing new meaning into our story. Frodo's call to adventure is our call as well. to take the first step on a road we may not fully understand, trusting that healing unfolds as we walk it. So let's just take just a few minutes to reflect on what we've looked at so far. And I would ask you these questions. What's the ring in your life? What burden have you been asked to carry that you didn't choose? That's something that we need to really consider. What's the thing that we have to carry that we really didn't ask for? And again, that could be lots of different things for each of us, depending on what you're having to do. Now, segment two, we're going to look at reflection and the narrative therapy, which is we have to learn how to name this burden. That's why I asked you what your ring is, or what situation are you in, what addiction may uh, you be burdened with that may be an organic or a chemical issue that's causing it. It may be environments that you came up in that you didn't choose. But in narrative therapy, one of the first steps toward healing is learning to name our burdens. Rather than pretending they don't exist or letting them define us, we begin to see them as part of our story, something we carry, but not something that is identical to who we are or who you are. Frodo shows us this truth. The ring itself is not Frodo. It is a heavy burden placed upon him, but it does not define his worth, his courage, or his identity. In fact, the very act of carrying the ring reveals the qualities in Frodo he never knew he had, which is endurance, compassion, and resilience. These are the parts of us that we don't even know that we have that come out during these sort of fiery trials. When we look at our own lives, it can be powerful to externalize our own struggles. In other words, to see them not as our core identity, but as something we wrestle with. This gives us space to begin rewriting our story. Think of it this way: addiction is not you, trauma is not you, grief, shame, anxiety, or depression, none of these are the total sum of who you are. They are burdens, yes, but like the ring, they can be named, acknowledged, and ultimately integrated into a story of hope. Let's just reflect a minute on what we've saw in this section. Just take a minute, pause, consider if your burden was an object like the ring, what would it look like? How heavy would it feel in your hands? What name would you give it if it were not hidden inside of you, but placed outside of yourself where you could see it clearly? See, by naming and describing it, you begin the process of separating yourself from it because you're more than just your burden. You are the one carrying it, and you have the strength to walk and to keep walking. So let's do this quick exercise. You can do it now. You can think about it in your mind. You can write it down in a journal. You can wrestle with this through the week. But again, just write one sentence that begins with "my ring is," and describe what you carry. What is the thing that you can describe if it was a physical object that you could give it some sort of external name that you could describe it? Then I want you to write a second sentence. But I am more than my ring because. So again, it's helping us understand that it's separating these things out. It's not our core identity and who you are, but it's what you're carrying and what you're dealing with. So think about it this week. Uh, Write this down. Think about it any way that you can sort of wrestle with this idea of what is the very burden, what's the ring, what's the addiction, what's the trauma, what's the hurt, what's the wound, what's the responsibility that you have that you're carrying that's so painful, that's weighing you down. Uh, so let's think about it. Okay. Now, section three, journaling and story work is where we really get into the meat of this, where we begin writing the prologue. So every great story begins with an opening chapter, a prologue that sets the stage for the journey ahead. Tolkien begins The Lord of the Rings in a quiet, almost idyllic shire. It's beautiful, where nothing seems extraordinary. Yet in those ordinary moments, the seeds of adventure, they're already present. Your life has a prologue too. It may be shaped by peace, it could be shaped by hardship, by joy, or by loss. But wherever it begins, it's your story. And the beauty of narrative therapy is that it allows you to step back, see your life as a story in motion, and realize the chapter you are now uh, is not the final one. Let's do this exercise real quick. Okay, again, in the same notebook in your mind, things to wrestle with this week before we meet again next Sunday. Take 10, 15 minutes out of your week, maybe tonight. You can do it now. Imagine your life as a book. Now, write the prologue to your healing journey. Now, how do you do that? Well, you first have to set the scene. Where does your story begin? Where does your shire? Where is your starting place? Maybe it's here in Hawkins County. Maybe it's in the mountains. Maybe you're from Mississippi. Maybe you're from New York. Maybe it's in your childhood where you have trauma, violence. Maybe you had good things going on there that you never imagined your life would get chaotic because maybe your home was peaceful. And then as you got older, things just got out of hand and became very chaotic and you didn't know what to do. But we all have a starting place somewhere. So where does your story begin? Then think about the characters. Who are the people around you in this opening chapter? Who are your helpers, your supporters? Who are your friends? And where are your challenges and your shadows? Who are those that may have made fun of you because you stuttered? Might have, kids can be cruel to one another. They can pick the thing about you that you're most self-conscious about. But maybe your nose isn't the way you think it should be, or maybe you're too skinny, or you're too large, or we all have these things about us uh, that don't quite, uh, we're not quite at peace with. uh, but we've got those that are on our side and those we feel like that are working against us. So who are the characters in your life in this story? Then again, think about the ring. We asked you to do this earlier. What's your burden? What's the wound? What's the challenge? Give it a name. This sets your story in motion. And then finally, think about the call. How did you first sense that you're being called to change, to heal, and to grow? You may have a religious journey. You may have deeply spiritual roots, or you may have been hurt by churches, or you may have been hurt by religion, and you just may that be the very thing that you're carrying that you have to deal with. Again, uh, what could be a source of strength for some people can be a source of pain for others, whether it be spiritual life or faith, or it could be education, it could be work. It could be family. Think about those things. The key insight here is writing your prologue is not about perfection or literary skill. It's not about how great you get it. You may not be a great story writer. It's not about that. It's about claiming your voice, how you write, how you answer the questions that are burning at your heart. It's an act of saying, my story matters. My journey has meaning, and I'm not finished yet. Or as the great J.R.R. Tolkien said, little by little, one travels far. Section 4, and we're getting close to finishing out our session together tonight. So stay with me. Section 4 is sort of a group discussion, and I know you're welcome to put any questions or comments in the comments section below, and we'll definitely talk about that. We'll get back to you. But as far as generally what we do in narrative therapies, we try to have discussions, whether it be the group, so that way we can connect. But this thing, again, things to think about. You can write these down. You can listen to this again later. But think about it this week before we meet again next Sunday. But think about, how did Frodo respond when he learned the true nature of the ring? What emotions do you see in him, like fear and resistance and resignation? Again, something that's thrust on us that we didn't ask for. We want to resist, and we would rather it be somebody else's burden. Have you ever faced something in your own life that felt like a burden you didn't choose? Just like I said, we haven't chosen these things. And how have you responded to it? Gandalf said, all we have to decide is what we do with the time that is given us. So, what does that mean to you today? Does that mean we just sit on this, or is he saying to move and move with what time you're given? Now, you answer that. Narrative therapy teaches us to see our struggles as a part of, but not equal to, our identity. It's part of who we are, but it's not everything. So, how does it feel to think of your burden as something you carry rather than something that defines you? And lastly, what gives you the courage to take the first step toward healing, even if the journey feels uncertain? So, again, think about these things, come back to it, listen to this again. Hopefully, this will open up some areas of your mind and your heart that'll truly help you through this week. So, section 5, closing reflection, and what we want to take away from this. So, what we want to take away is deciding what to do with the time given, going back to what Gandalf said. So, as Frodo takes his first steps out of the Shire, he doesn't know how the story will end. He only knows that he must begin. His burden is heavy, but he chooses to move forward one step at a time. In our own lives, we rarely know what lies ahead. None of us know. We're not guaranteed success. We're not guaranteed anything in life. Any of us that have lived a few years at all have understood that life is not fair. Healing is not a straight path either, because we've all went 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. It's a road with shadows, with companions, and with all sorts of unexpected turns. But like Frodo, we are invited to begin, even if our steps are very small. So I would ask that of you. How would you do that? And our closing quote, of course, Gandalf reminds Frodo and us of this deep truth. And I'll say it one last time. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. So this is the heart of week 1. Though we did not choose our burdens, we can choose how to live with them, how to seek healing, and how to continue writing our story, your story, my story, how we can continue in doing so. Think about that this week, and we'll be glad to see you again next week. take away this very thing, this reflection, that each evening ask yourself, what small step did I take today toward healing? And if you are so inclined, if you want to continue journaling, if you want to keep thinking about this, writing it out, write a paragraph imagining your first step out of the shower. What does it look like as you begin your healing journey? So that ends our session for tonight. I hope that you've been encouraged by it, and I hope I've sparked some thoughts for you. Maybe you can help us as we go through this journey. So again, comment, send us some notes. Let us know how you've enjoyed this, or maybe things that we can do better. But a preview for next week, next session, we're going to be exploring the fellowship, which is the companions that walk with us, the safe places that sustain us, and the truth that no one heals alone. So until then, may you carry your burdens with courage. May you never forget that even the smallest person can change the course of the future. So good night. Thank you for being on with us, and appreciate each of you for your attention. And I hope you have a great week. Thanks.